Hi there guys, Gary here for Open Door Studio. Today we're going to be talking about the animation system within Blender, because if you've never animated in Blender before, I just want to walk it through with you briefly. There is a cheat sheet at the back of the style guide and all the animation information sheets that you've got in there, but nonetheless, having that is not as good as actually just going through the motions. So let's go through the motions. So I'm about to start to animate a shot. Now the shot that's been assigned to me is shot 2, which is a little shot of the robot from the right hand side, and he's from his left hand side, sorry, and he's just about to take a step closer to the door. So it's not a big shot, but it's a good tester for what we need to do. So I'm going to go and open that shot. Now I've got that shot on my desktop and in a folder called Shot 2 Pack. Okay. And then I've got an asset folder, which has got characters, environments, and props in it. But I'm going to go into shots and into the layout folder, and you'll find shot 2 layout 001. So I'm going to open that. And that takes us to essentially the animation window. So up here, you've got different tabs in each one of these. So that's the layout one. So this is when I put everything together, I kind of throw it together in here. And by now you will have seen the animatic, so you'll be able to know what's happening here. On the grand scheme of things. And then we've got a modeling setup, which normally will look something like this, and then so you have kind of like 4 views that you can move around in, and but that's just a quick shortcut. And sculpting, if you're going to sculpt stuff and everything. But no, we're going to move on to the animation one, which is what it should be on, and very quickly talk about the layout before we start talking about the animating. So if you've never used Blender before, all of these windows are totally adjustable and changeable. Right now we've got this animation, so let's go to frame 0, or we just go pop here to the beginning, press play, and you can see that's a flying bot. Will go through there, and then the camera pans down, and then forwards looks up, and that's basically it. That's this shot. Looks down, camera goes down, and then it looks up, and that's it. So in the actual shot itself, the frames that we're going to be using for the actual film are frames 30 to frame 185. So even though the shot is longer, that's the part of the edit that we've actually used. We don't need to put in handles. It's animation. Everything is locked. There will be no shifting of time. So all your animation pretty much will have to be within this bracket of frames. So as I've said, we've got the window here that shows us our view of the camera, which is nicely locked, so we can't do anything with it. You can see here the keyframes for the camera. If I move this up a little bit, you can see here, this is a dope sheet, so you'll see rotation and location there, not like this, and moves across, and then it holds to a certain extent on some of the things, so you can see the holds there, and then it goes boom and drops down. So that's not a big move, and then it slowly pulls in a bit. And then here is our character. Now we want to put him into our first pose. Now, when you look at this, you've got this really sort of like oddness. You've got this orange camera that's blocking the way. So what we can do is we can go up here to our outliner and click the little eye on the camera, and that just hides that away. Doesn't get rid of it, just hides it away. And we now have this sort of elaborate skeleton thing going on. Well, we'll go through the skeleton very briefly, but the first thing I want to do is make sure we turn something off, because by default, all the parts of the armature, all the parts of the rig are visible. At the moment, they're all colored. That's because this is in the mode ready to animate. But normally you won't be in pose mode up here. It'll probably be in object mode. So as you can see, it's kind of grayed out. But if you click on the armature and then go up here and go pose mode, this makes it all available for animation. It just means that if ever anyone needs to do any editing to the characters or anything like that, you can go into edit mode and do changes. But we can't at all on Littlebot because he's a referenced object. What I mean by that is linked in. What we need to do is we need to make sure that he is in fact connected to your scene. If you can't see him, it's not looking at the right place. So if you go down here in your outliner to this little display mode at the side and click on Blender File, and then you'll see here in Libraries we've got our environment and we've got our robot. If there's a little sort of like triangle with an exclamation mark in there, it needs relinking. So you right click on it, go relocate, go up to the folder in where the asset is in the reference. So ref animation blend button, go relocate library, and it'll just basically reattach it. So that's great. So what we need to go, before we can do any animating, we need to go back into pose mode. And on this armature now I can pick things, but I don't want to be able to pick everything there. I only want to be able to pick the things that's animatable, because if I start messing around with the other stuff that's in there, it'll break. Breaking rigs happens all the time. It's not great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to in the properties tab. In the properties menu, there's this one here, which is for data. And here in the bone collections, it is data, but it's data for all the bones and stuff. You've got two bone collections, one called bones and one called control bones. So if I turn off control bones and bones is on, all the bones are still visible. But if I leave the control bones on and turn off the bones, now you'll see you've just got a bunch of controllers, which if you swipe over them all, will select them all. Just to briefly go over what we have in here, I'm just going to, now I've got them all selected, the first thing I'm going to do, because this is kind of in a pose already, is I'm going to de-animate, as it were, or depose. I'm going to go to pose, clear transforms all, and that basically resets all of your animation of your robot. You'll also notice there's a little button down here, right at the very bottom, on this tiny playback menu, this one up here, it's on the timeline, and that is the auto keyer. When it's on, it's a full circle. When it's off, it's like that. If there's one thing I will recommend, it's do not auto key. It's not a good idea when you're animating, because you tend to have scrappy keyframes all over the place, and that's not the process you animate with in animation. You normally do blocking, and then you'll do spacing, and then you'll do some in-betweening, and then you'll refine and refine and refine. That's kind of how it works until you get the finished thing you want. So let's talk about the process here. I'm going to change this up here back to view layer so we can see all of our little stuff. Now, what we have in here is a very simple rig, as you'd expect, because it's a very simple little robot. The first thing we have, if we look at this, is we have a great big cross on the floor. It's a transform node, like on this little bit up here that says move. By the way, very quickly, that is a toolbar. To get it visible, you press T. To get rid of it, you press T. So the toolbar is there. This is basically where you do any single frame animation or stuff like this. You can control or move things around like this. Very mad, won't do it again. And that is made visible and invisible by pressing N on the keyboard. So I'm going to leave that away. Let's just move that out of the way. I don't really need that so much as I do need this. So this is your base bone, which is actually called a bone, because I wanted it to be a bone. So there we go. Let's just put that back. So that moves absolutely everything. We then have basically a bum bone, and that is the controller for the bottom part of the rig. And then here we have essentially what is a whole upper torso rotate. And the reason for that is so you can do this without messing around with the arms getting stuck, because the arms have both IK and FK. And then we have this little chest thing here, which is actually just a positional thing, but by dint of it, it's on a spline IK. So it acts a little bit like a rotation-y thing. So you can use that for left and right as well, to get just a little bit of wibble in the upper top part of the body. And then there's the head, and the head again is just rotate, so it does that. And you can see, actually you can see that the eyes are not moving. The reasons why the eyes are not moving is because over here we have a little controller which we move up and down that we can use for the eye, so it looks at that little controller. By the way, if you don't like these little lines, they're called relationship lines. If you go up here, there's this little thing that turns on and off everything, but it turns off all the armatures as well. But if you click the little arrow at the side, turning off all the overlays, you can pick to turn off the relationship lines, and now they're gone. You can get rid of all sorts, but it's like all the rig is the controllers are bones. They've just been changed to look like controls, which makes it easier to actually use them. Then over here we've got, in fact, let's very quickly talk about this. So yes, this is up and down, and then in here we've got 2 circles which we can animate, and those animate the eyes like so. Animate them that way, but also if I just press N, I just want to reset all of those, and then do the same there, all of those. We can also basically, let's just get the right axis. We can rotate them that way, and then we can also rotate them that way, so we can make them a little bit evil, or not, as the case may be. And then we have the eyebrows, which we can lift up and down and away from the geometry itself, and then we can also rotate these as you wish, sort of in different manners, up and down and stuff. If you want to make them do some silly facial expressions with the eyes. And then again, we've got these sort of like dealy bopper antenna things, and they are just for rotating, and they are nice and easy to use. And now I'm very quickly going to come down and talk about the arms. So if you look at an arm, we have this bone set here, and then we have this over here. Now this is our IK handle. So if we open up the properties on that, you can see it's got FK, IK switch. So if I set that to 0, what happens is that basically then I can rotate using this here, and then if I want to, I can take it back to the IK, and the IK, I can move the arm up here. It's very simple, an IK-FK rig, but it's just good to have in case you need to, and you can keyframe that as well. So let's just go back, and it's the same on the other side. Also, we have a pole vector, so if we do use the IK and we push this in and do this, we can use this to change the angle of the arm. So it's all nice and simple. And then the same on the other side, obviously. And then we've got a foot, an IK foot, which is a reverse foot situation. So it's actually moving all the IK with the foot control. And then you can rotate it. And then also you can rotate the toe, or you can move the toe. Now, I'm just going to very quickly talk about how you do rotations and so on within Blender, if you've never used it before. In pose mode, it's still the same as it is in object mode in most cases. So if I was to lift this foot, I'm going to lift it up. I've got on that controller there. What I can also do is I can press G. G allows for free movement, unless you're moving it in a particular axis. So I can now press G and I press X. X locks it to that axis. Y locks it to this axis, and Z locks it to this axis. But you can also go things like GX1, and it's moved it all the way over there because it's big. Or I just go back and let's go GY.1. That moves that forwards. Yep. And then of course if we want to reset, pose, clear transforms, all. And it's done it on the stuff that you've selected because that's kind of the way it works, which is nice. Clear transforms all. But now what I want to do, I'm going to bring back all of this stuff so I can see. And I'm going to go here to frame 30, and I'm going to just put him in a pose, and I'm blocking. Oh, before I do that, let's go File, Save As, go up where it says Layout. We're then going to create a new folder. We're going to call it Anim. And in Anim, we're going to save this as shot2 SH02. Yeah, I know it sounds stupid, SH02. No, we'll call it that, and we'll call it Anim. That's better. Yes, we'll call it shot2 Anim 1. Save. So I'm now working in, it's now working not in the layout file, we've left that as it is. We've now basically saved this as the animation file. So let's put this into a pose. So I'm going to just take this bum and I'm going to bring it down so his legs are a bit bent, maybe a little bit too much maybe. And I'm going to move this around so his foot's back a bit. In fact, let's move this forward so I can see what he looks like when he's on the ground. So there we go. and move that forwards a bit, and let's just rotate this in the X, so it rotates it forwards a bit. Let's get the head and rotate that in the X, so we get there. Let's take this and let's just go GZ and just GX, GY. Oh, it's so interesting, isn't it? GY, the rotational node on that is not set to XYZ as we'd expect it to be, but it don't matter. It don't mean nothing because we've got this down here. And then I'm going to take this, let's zoom in here, pick these two because I can look in here, go rotate, and let's rotate this down. There we go. So it's looking down. And now let's take this foot and turn it out a little, and take this foot and turn this one out a little. And then let's just bring these arms down. And of course, I've got the FK on, so I'll turn that back to 0. So that back to 0 there. And let's rotate this so it's pretty loose. And the same with that, it's just a little bit bored. And let's do the same with this arm. Let's put that down. And we'll just, now that's all, that's just nice. Now, up here at the top, just want to show you this. You can see here we've got the words local. And then we've got here, we've got medium point. We can actually set that to bounding box center. That's probably more accurate. Normally you'll have it on global and bounding box center, but, and here's the big but, most of that's fine. Local is always better for rotations because it always then allows you to do along an axis which is actually existing inside of that joint rather than just a global rotation which can be all over the place. So I can just pick that bone and go that and put that arm up a bit. But here's the thing. This is actually pretty important. If I take a series of bones and I want these, all these bones here, I can just swipe over them. Just make sure I don't have, there we go, don't have the pole vector at the knee. I want to curl all these up. So I want to curl them in this direction. So I do that, and even though I've got them all selected, it's not rotating them individually, it's rotating them based on the main bone, which is the top bone in that connection. But if we go here and change the transform pivot point to individual origins and do that again, we'll get the curl that we want. Okay, you can then, if you want to, change that back, but I would pretty much leave that on individual origins all the time. Don't see any point in it being any other way. And do the same on these. Dum, 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 dum. By the way, this is just left click with shift to do that, and then let's curl these up. Oh no, hang on. Does help if you set it. I'll do it again. There you go, individual origins. I did that on purpose, honestly. And we'll do that. And now that's probably going into the leg. So let's take this arm and shift it out a little. So they're not actually in the leg. Let's do it this way a little bit more. And here a little bit more. And so I've now got my first pose. Let's take this. Let's just push those forwards a bit. So over here we can see that's our first pose. That's okay. I'm quite happy with that. But I need that to be over here on about frame 30 because that's where we're going to start to see things moving. So I want to now put a keyframe on all of that stuff, everything, because I'm going to be blocking. So let's go select everything, and that does select everything, but because we're in pose mode, it only selects all the joints, so that's great. But then we also haven't collected the eyes, they're there as well, so let's just make sure we get all those. Now, normally, I would say we press I, and that would create a keyframe on everything. Now, in this instance, I've also created a keyset. Now, by a keyset, what that is, it's like a character group inside of Maya. So, what it does is it means that I can press K for keyframing in the window, and then say keyframe on the little robot keyset, which is easy. So I press K, and you can see a little bot keyset. And what that does is it just keyframes on every single part of that little bot, just like that. But what it does do is if I press I, which is the normal, like keyframe everything please, it does do everything. It does it on all the scales, it does it on all the locations, it does on all the rotations, but not on a keyset. On a keyset, it only saves them on the things that you say you want to actually be keyed. So the scale isn't keyed and the location isn't keyed. And now we have a keyframe. So very quickly now at this particular point, I'd just like to point something out in Blender, which is a big thing, but it's done in other packages as well, but it's just really, really good. And it is this fact. It is that you can change the type of any window. They're very changeable. So at the minute, what looks like a 3D view can be changed into a graph editor or a dope sheet or a shader editor or whatever. They're interchangeable. So you can create these wonderful workspaces, a lot of which have been created for you by the tabs at the top, which is useful. But sometimes you want to just change a window into something else. So we're going to do that in a minute. So I thought I'd mention that and show you a bit of a layout of exactly all the options and stuff that you can pick and where you hit the tab. Right, let's get back to it. Now, I am going to very quickly change this to the graph editor so we can see this, just so I can get this a bit wider so you can see. If I pop open that little bot set, you can see all of these, and all of those keyframes are all visible in here. Now, you can see there's one up here. Doesn't matter because it still is one keyframe. These are the handles. It's that one in the middle, and that's all of the things. That's all of the keyframes. Now, I want to do 2 more poses, so I'm going to very quickly do those, and then I will show you, because it's blocking. I don't want it to be animating. So let's go back to 3D viewer. Let's press 0 on the number pad, and that puts us into the camera. So let's go. Let's move that first keyframe that we've got there in the dope sheet here. Let's press G and X and move that to 99. And then here, I'm just going to do a little change of position, nudge it forwards a bit. Let's bring this foot forwards. Let's bring him down a bit again, and a little bit more here. Let's just move him this way. Move it up and bring his head down. And let's rotate this arm up a bit. And let's just bring him forwards a touch as well. And then press K and go Littlebot keyset. We have another one with all the keys. I don't have to select them all for them to actually have keyframes. You'll notice that they all now have keyframes. And then we want to work out where he looks up. So we turn back on the grease pencil commands. So I'm going to go, I've selected all of these. I'm going to go Control C and Control V, which basically puts all those keyframes like holds all the way there. So there might be a little bit of motion going on there. So we're sliding into that position, and then boop, and when I'm looking up there. So let's take these, go G, just move them back a bit. They're on a dope sheet, so they're not going to move. And then we'll go pop. So here, I'm now going to basically put him into our next position, which is looking up. Okay, so let's move this foot back as a brace. Let's move this back like that. Push it up a tad. Don't want to stretch the feet, but I can. And then let's move this way back a little bit. Let's take this and move this up. And then let's take the rotations on these, rotate these out so we can see that he's looking up. Let's move them towards us a bit. So even though we can see the eyes, let's just change this very quickly, by the way, into texture view, which is basically the shading view here. There you go. So everything will just click on in a minute. You've got all the textures or smaller versions of the textures actually as part of the kit. So you can now see we've got his eye there. And I actually think now I can see a bit more color as well. I think it makes me think that I should basically take this arm and bring that back there. And I'm going to take the body, this bit here, and I'm going to rotate it around a little bit like this, just a little bit. And then I'm going to go K and go little bot keyset. And now we've got this first sort of like animation-y thing, but I don't want these keys to be the way they are. So if I just select everything here so we can see them all, and then if I go dot on the keypad, you can see there's stuff going on here. You can see there's motion in the curves. What I want is I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to press T, and then I'm going to press C. So now he will snap from one position to the other. You'll also notice that what I didn't select, as I always do, and you will as well, I promise, is the eye controller. The eye controller is not doing it. Now the reason why I missed it is because it's easy to miss, but it's not a problem. You just swipe over those keys that are visible, press T and then C, and that locks them. If you go TL, you get linear animations, which you can see how many on the eyes only there. Okay. If we go TB, we're back to our Beziers. Yeah. So it's like transform. It's like T. It's basically keyframe interpolation. I don't know why it's T. It's fine. And you can. There are a bunch of them in here. They're all fine. I would recommend just sticking with your standard interpolations. TC. Okay, so now they're all happening in the blocking. And that essentially is how you go about doing your animation. That's how you block it. As I say, there is a cheat sheet towards the back of the style guide for most of the things that I've just shown you. I'm also just going to quickly go save. There we go. And you can sort of use this as your guide. So let's very quickly go back here and just go, no. Oh, the camera's flying over and it's like, there he is. And there he goes. And he looks a little step forward and then takes a little step back. And that will kind of work, I think. And if we're checking it between the actual lines, it's like, boom, boom. And that cuts on that point there. So, yeah. And then what we can do is, that's okay for a start. Might need to be a little bit further back at the beginning. So I'll be able to go here. And let's go to our first, our next frame, our first frame here. And let's just take him and move him a little bit. So let's just see the next frame. I think we can actually, if you press the up arrow key, it moves forwards to the next keyframe. If you move the down arrow key, it moves you to the previous keyframe. So I think what we need to do is just move him back over here a little bit and take that and move back that leg. And then we press K and little bot keyset, and he'll step up and then look up. And then on that key, let me just go back. I think, yeah, I'm going to take this foot and make it not quite so far back. And then let's take that and move that over there, and take this one and move this over here a little bit. So we're swinging that around a bit. Sorry. I mean, this is the point. This is the point. We refine, we edit, we press K, we press little bot keyset, and then we can just check it again and go, what's it like? What's it like? And that is how we block the first shot. And that's it, really. That's the process. The next one is to change it from, once you think these are okay for the blocking, we then adjust the spacing, which is the second part of the blocking, really. And then we go in and then we start doing linear animation across things, and then adding extra offsets so that arms move at a little bit different speeds to others, or there's a little bit of lag and blinks and little things on the dealy boppers. and everything just adds up to more and more animation and makes it look wonderful. And I'm sure that you'll all make it look wonderful. Anyway, that's basically it on the base part of the animation. Any questions, please feel free to ask. It's not a bad thing to ask. It's always a good thing to ask. You don't learn unless you ask, but you know, at the same time, you can start refining your skills a bit with the animation. So well done for taking on the challenge of doing this. I am very, very grateful. You're saving me so much time, and so it is proper work. This is proper work experience. There will be something at the end of this, and I cannot thank you enough. So crack on, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.